Welcome back to the Resource Nexus podcast, and today we're diving headfirst into the juggernaut that is the SEC. Before we get into the rankings, let me set the stage for anyone new around here. These aren't just vibes-based takes. Everything you're about to hear is grounded in the data from my model, built to evaluate roster strength, player impact, and team structure, all backed by real numbers. You can find the full team breakdowns and player rankings on the resourcenexus.com if you want to dig deeper. The team and player ratings I reference come from what I call the Jeff model. It's a tool I use to translate player production across all levels while adjusting for role, pace, and strength of opposition. We're not just talking points per game. We're measuring possession-based value, lineup synergy, and real win impact. So when I say Florida, Kentucky, and Auburn are the top dogs in the SEC, that's not just a feeling, that's math. Florida ranks third nationally in my model, Kentucky sixth, Auburn ninth. That's not opinion, that's analytics, and today we're breaking down why. It's also important to understand just how dominant the SEC was last year. Statistically, it graded out as the best conference in the history of the sport. And this season, the SEC comes out first again in my rankings, but the margin is razor thin at the top with the Big Ten right on their heels. Here's how it shakes out in terms of average team rank. First SEC, 33rd ninth. Second Big Ten, 36.8. So yeah, this is elite territory. Let's get into it. Let's kick this thing off at the top of the SEC land. No surprise here. It's Florida, Kentucky, and Auburn, holding down the top three spots, nationally ranked 3rd, 6th, and 9th, respectively. The Jeff team ratings have them all clustered in that 3.7 to 3.8 range. So yeah, these are your early conference frontrunners. Florida starts us off, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. This is a national championship level front line. Alex Condon ranks 12th in the country with a monster 5.4 rating. Thomas Hall isn't far behind. He checks in at number 15 with a 5.3. You pair those two with Ruben Chinyelu, ranked 100th nationally with a 3.7, and Micah Hanlogton, 236th with a 3.0, and you got 4 rotation caliber bigs that are all completely legit. I've got Florida third nationally in my model, and honestly, we got to respect them after what they did last year. I've said it before. I'm a believer that the front court is where you make the biggest gains in value. You need those easy twos, that rim protection, and this group is absolutely stacked. Even if I don't trust the backcourt as much this year, their bigs give them a high floor, like really high. Now, the question, and it's a big one, is the backcourt. Boogie Fland is solid. He comes in ranked 78th nationally with a 3.9 rating. But Xavier Lee, transferring in from Princeton, is sitting way down at 328 with a 2.6. And if he ends up being the starting point guard, well, then we're looking at a team with title-level size and rim protection, but maybe a real vulnerability at the one. CJ Ingram is a freshman, rated 2.1. That puts him outside the top 500. Alex Lloyd's even further down, ranked 813 nationally. So yeah, the front court is scary good. But someone in that backcourt is going to have to step up if this team wants to be the last one standing in April. Let's start with Otega Owe, ranked 6th nationally with a 5.6 rating. That's elite, big-time, two-way wing. He gives them star power right away. But the wild card here? Jaden Quaintance. He's ranked 68th with a 4.0 rating, and that assumes he's fully healthy, which is still a bit of an open question. If he's right, that front court takes a major step forward. If not, it gets a little trickier. The rest of this Kentucky squad, it's deep. Mohamed Dioubat checks in at 83 nationally, rated 3.9. Jalen Lowe is 151 with a 3.4. Then you've got Brandon Garrison and Andrei Jelovich, both at 3.3, ranked 179 and 182. So that's 6 top 200 players, not even counting the freshmen with upside. But here's the thing. There's a lot of youth on this roster. Jasper Johnson, Malachi Moreno, and Denzel Aberdeen are all ranked outside the top 400. Cam Williams is way down at 818. If the freshmen hit, and if Quaintance is healthy, this team's ceiling is right up there with Florida's. But it's not quite as settled. There's more volatility in this build. And, yeah, I've got questions about some of the investments here. Denzel Aberdeen at around $2 million, that's wild. Not saying he's a bad role player, but that's serious money for a guy you're plugging into a specific lane. And when you already have other one-dimensional pieces, like those Tulane guys, it starts to feel a little redundant. Cam Williams is another one. He put up a 5% against the 150th strength of schedule. The guy averaged 9 points per game while playing 32 minutes. That's just not good. I don't care how you spin it. That's not a number you want on your resume. So overall, yeah, this is a talented team with star potential if everything breaks right. But unlike Florida, I'm not ready to say the foundation is fully set just yet. Now, Auburn, and man, this team might be the most underrated of the three. I've seen them outside the top 15 in some places, and that just doesn't line up with the data. Like, I started looking around at other people's rankings for the first time today, and I was shocked to see Auburn sitting 31st, even with Tahad Pettiford on the roster. Meanwhile, I've got them all the way up at 9th. When the model spit them out as the 5th most talented roster in the country, I actually went back and lowered the projection on their JUCO edition just to be cautious. JUCOs can be hit or miss, but I'm telling you, this one's not missing. More on him in a second. And let's not forget, Auburn played what was basically the second toughest strength of schedule in modern history last year. That's not an exaggeration. They battled. Fast forward to this year, and you've got Keyshawn Murphy, ranked 21st nationally with a 5.2 rating. Tahad Pettiford, who's back and running the show, is 46th with a 4.5. That gives them two legit top 50 guys covering both the front court and back court. And then there's Keyshawn Hall, 6'7", built like a freight train and ranked 60th with a 4.2. That's physicality, scoring, rebounding, all in one. Philip Jovic adds more versatility, 125th with a 3.6. That's two more high-level guys off the bench who can give you real minutes. Elijah Freeman and Kevin Overton round out the main rotation guys. Freeman is ranked 202nd. Overton comes in at 316. Again, not stars, but they can absolutely play. And now let's go back to that JUCO piece I mentioned. Abdul Bashir averaged 27 points per game last year, plus 4 assists, and shot 45% from 3. He's 6'7", a big guard who can score it. Look, but if even half of that production translates, he could be a sneaky big-time spark. I've projected conservatively, I think, at 107th with a 3.7 rating. Finally, you've got Sebastian Williams-Adams at 600. Not every team has a 9th or 10th guy you'd want touching the floor. Auburn does. This rotation is deep. It's built for March, and it's got balance across the board. And look, Florida's ceiling might be championship level. Kentucky has the highest upside if everything clicks. But Auburn might be the most slept-on top 10 team in the country right now. We got more to get to, but that's your first look at the SEC heavyweights. Coming in 4th in the SEC and 12th national, we've got Tennessee. They land 23rd in our talent rankings with a 3.3 team rating. Now look, they don't grade out quite as well analytically as some of the other top-tier programs, but we've seen this story before. Tennessee runs a defensive system that mirrors what Kelvin Sampson does at Houston, and that tends to travel. It's tough, it's gritty, it's basically designed to grind you down to a pulp. So yeah, this ranking isn't just about talent. It's a nod to the coaching floor and that defensive backbone. They'll muddy things up, win ugly, and make you feel like you just spent 40 minutes in a washing machine. That system, it's plug and play. You got to assume it just keeps humming. Now let's talk about the roster. Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Ament both come in with 4.6 ratings, ranked 33rd and 39th nationally. Serious pieces to build around. Gillespie in particular might be one of the best gets in the entire country. And then you add Felix Okpara. ranked 65th with a 4.1 rating. A legit interior anchor who fits their style perfectly. Someone actually called Tennessee a loser in the offseason. I don't know what they're smoking. Gillespie's a stud. Ament's a freshman, yeah, but he should be good. Now, Ament was a tough one to project. Some of the other freshmen I rated higher, like Arenas, had averaged well over 20 points per game in EYBL. That gives you a more solid floor. Ament, though, a 6', 9" perimeter player as a freshman, there's just a little more uncertainty there. Cade Phillips is further down the board at 209, rated 3.1. Jalen Carey checks in at 272 with a 2.8. Beyond that, you've got Amari Evans and Amari Abram floating in the 500s. Solid depth pieces, sure, but not guys that are going to move the needle in isolation. Bottom line, Cade Phillips probably needs to step up if they want to reach that next gear. One more thing Vol fans don't want to hear, but probably need to start thinking about. Rick Barnes. This might be his last year, or at the very least, we're nearing the end. And here's the kicker. There's no obvious successor lined up. If he tries to handpick one, let's be honest, it's probably not going to be pretty. His coaching tree doesn't exactly scream future star. But to be fair, he's probably earned that trust with the higher-ups. Vol fans getting salty about back-to-back Elite Eights as 2 seeds? Come on. Enjoy the ride while it lasts. Alabama's up next. They're sitting 5th in the SEC, 16th nationally, with a team talent rating of 3.1. Now, just like Tennessee leans on a defensive identity, Bama's got that trademark system that almost anyone can plug into. Fast-paced, tons of threes, and spacing the floor wide open. The talent level this year, not quite what we've seen on some of Coach Oates' previous rosters, but I still expect him to squeeze the most out of this group. These guys aren't scared. They play one of the toughest schedules in history according to Ken Palm's strength of schedule. Alabama ranked number 1 last year with a plus 20 rating. For some perspective, that's a big jump from the usual plus 11 to plus 14. Leading the charge is Labaron Philon, ranked 37th nationally with a 4.6 rating. They had to have him back, and honestly, I always figured he would return, but it looks like they really had to lean on him. Aiden Holloway isn't far behind, sitting 59th nationally with a 4.2 rating. Latrell Wrightsell brings a solid 3.9 at 86th. He's experienced and fits the system perfectly. The rest of the roster, not as deep or impressive as the last few years. It's a little surprising Coach Oates is heading into this season with freshmen and some under-the-radar guys, including a player from the Patriot League and another from Tarleton State. Honestly, I kind of like the Tarleton State guy, but I didn't expect to see him at Bama. After the top 3, it thins out fast. Taylor Ball-Bowen clocks in at 310th nationally with a 2.7 rating. Aiden Sherrill is at 439 with a 2.3. Then you've got Jalil Bethea in the 500s and Kai-10 Bristow. London Jemison and Noah Williamson round out the depth in the 700 to 800 range. So there's a lot of depth, but not a ton of star power beyond those top 3. It's that classic Oates system where you just plug guys in, run fast, and shoot a ton of threes. Maybe it works again, but honestly, this feels like the first year in a while where the roster is kind of questionable overall. That said, Oates has earned enough respect to get the benefit of the doubt going in. And now, Ole Miss. They're ranked 23rd in the country, 6th in the SEC, with a 3.4 team rating. I gotta say, after digging into the backcourt, there's some cause for concern, especially at point guard. That international player did rate out pretty well, though, and we're assuming health with Johnson, so that's a plus. The real key here is Malik Dia, nationally ranked 50th with a 4.4 rating. Honestly, he's underrated, full stop. Same goes for James Scott, who's sitting at 101 nationally with a 3.7 rating. A lot of the value here is centered, literally, in the front court. If you told me Ole Miss was going to play Dia and Scott together with minimal overlap, I'd feel a lot better about maxing this group's talent. But I'm not totally convinced that's the plan. They also have A.J. Storr and Corin Johnson, both rated 3.5. ranked 143 and 146 nationally. Ilias Kamerdine adds a 3.4 at 162, and Corey Chest brings a 3.2 at 187. That's a solid, balanced core. I mentioned before that teams should be running to the portal to grab Store while his value is at a nadir. I really think he's poised to bounce back here, going from a 19.7 PER against a top 5 schedule with high usage and averaging 17 points a game to a 7 PER as a backup. That's not normal. Nico Bundalo is ranked 490 with a 2.2 rating. Not a needle mover, but solid depth. There's definitely a track record with Chris Beard, and you can't deny the talent is there. The fit feels a little weird, and the depth and guards aren't as strong. I'm kind of talking myself into ranking them lower, but hey, the numbers don't lie. And they go back to perhaps the most impactful player on the team, Malik Dia. Sitting at 24th in the nation and 7th in the SEC, Vanderbilt. Yeah, I know. That's not a name you're used to seeing that high. But it's real. This roster's got depth and some high-level talent, especially Devin McLaughlin, who ranks 24th nationally with a massive 5.1 rating. Well, he's exactly the kind of guy who can change a season if you actually play him. They're going to need him more this year, because if you don't, guys might just leave. Look at what happened with Jason Edwards, and that was a significant loss. The guy averaged an efficient 17 points per game in just 25 minutes. In my opinion, he should have been playing way more. Hopefully McLaughlin gets that kind of run. Byington really should have leaned on him more last year. Can't afford to lose talent like that to Providence, especially partly because you didn't give him enough minutes. So let's be honest, losing Tyron Lawrence and especially Ezra Edwards hurt. And it's a reminder, if you don't play your best dudes, they'll leave. Simple as that. Still, this is a squad that can make some noise. You've got Tyler Harris at 102nd nationally with a 3.7 rating, Frankie Collins at 142 with a 3.5, and Duke Miles not far behind at 153, rating out at 3.4. Miles posted an 18 PER and 65% true shooting, starting for an NCAA team against a top 25 strength of schedule. He had big numbers and efficiency at High Point the year before, too. Honestly, there's a lot less difference than you might think. You could even argue he's more proven in a Power 5 conference, especially considering he had 62% true shooting at High Point as a high usage guy, and was more efficient as their primary option. Tyler Nickel ranks 174 nationally. Jalen Washington at 342, and even down the bench, there's legit playable depth. Guys like Tyler Tanner at 314 with a 2.7 rating, Mason Nicholson at 366, and Mike James at 380, Trista Osimdesset Ichitri. But again, it all hinges on McLaughlin seeing real minutes. He's the elevator for this team's ceiling, and he can take them up fast. All right, now let's talk Arkansas. Sitting just behind Vanderbilt at 25th nationally and 8th in the SEC. I'm not saying I trust Calipari's rotation choices, because honestly I don't, but the more I stare at this roster, the more I buy in. It's big, it's physical, and it might have one of the best post games in college hoops this year. Still, somehow, Calipari has figured out how to start Wagner and Edwards over Shepard and Dillingham. Even though Shepard and Dillingham were the second and third best players and scorers, or to use Karl Anthony Towns and Devin Booker as your 6th and 7th minute players, despite them being your first and second scorers. He just finds a way to underachieve year after year with those weird rotations. The centerpiece here, Malik Ewan, rated 61st overall with a 4.2 rating. Finally, he's got some help down low, so expect his game to flourish. Ewan grades out statistically as a great post presence, and it's an ideal setup for him. Backing him up, you've got freshman guard Darius Acuff Jr. coming in hot at 87th nationally with a 3.9 rating. Then it's Nick Pringle at 123rd, Trevon Brazil at 158, Melik Thomas at 185, and Carter Knox checking in at 212. Even the depth is intriguing. DJ Wagner is all the way down at 403, but he's still a name to know. And Billy Richmond III gives you a 2.1 rating off the bench. There's definitely more star power here than people realize. If Calipari actually tightens the screws on rotation, this team could muscle its way into the second weekend. Next up, Texas A&M, sitting 32nd nationally and 9th in the SEC with a 3.4 team rating. Here's the thing. I'm not convinced Bucky Ball is built to win big. Playing your best guy just 19 minutes a game while trying to platoon 11 deep, that's not maximizing your roster. That's just philosophical stubbornness. Honestly, I think Bucky underachieves. He plays his best players 19 to 22 minutes per game. No way Acor should be a 22-minute-a-game player in the SoCon. That's leaving better rankings on the table. It's kind of amusing that Texas A&M went from one coach who plays way too many players to the mid-major version of a coach who plays way too many players. The dude basically played his leading scorer 6-man minutes, 14 points per game in 19.8 minutes. Ridiculous. Look, you can make anything work if you have enough talent, but it's an underachieving style, in my opinion, when you play a guy like Acor, just 22 minutes per game at that level. I think there's a ceiling on what they can be playing like that. That said, I've got to give Bucky credit. He assembled some serious talent quickly after getting the job late in the cycle. Ruben Dominguez, a dynamic international guard, might be the breakout star here. Ranked 71st nationally with a 4.0 rating. His stats from the ACB translate very well in the model. Mackenzie Migbako brings some firepower too, coming in at 103rd with a 3.7 rating. Rashawn Agee checks in at 141 with a 3.5 rating. And then you've got a cluster of steady contributors, Federico, Rylan Griffin, and Pop Isaacs, all rating out at 2.9. The floor here is probably higher than most expect, but the ceiling, that depends on whether the rotation finally makes sense, or if it's just more Bucky being Bucky. Last in this group, Mississippi State coming in at 33rd nationally with a 2.9 rating, and 10th in the SEC. And let's start at the top. Because Josh Hubbard is the truth. He ranks 29th in the country with a 4.7 rating, and he gives them a real star. Behind him, you've got shot blocking and rim protection with Quincy Ballard, rated 117th at 3.6. He should help a lot behind Hubbard, who can sometimes be a defensive liability. I also like the blend they've got with Chalmoucho at 257, Acor at 267, and Jaden Epps at 394, a guy who could still pop in the right situation. Miss State's only been to one NCAA tournament in the last 12 years before Chris Jans showed up. And now we're expecting them to be back again. There's something about this core, Hubbard, Epps, Acor, that just works. It might not be flashy, but it's functional and dangerous. All right, so let's dive into the bottom half of the SEC, or as I like to call it, the try again next year tier. Coming in at number 11 in the SEC, we've got Texas, sitting 35th nationally with an F rating of 3.1. Now, Texas is a roster built more on depth than stars, and honestly, that's not always a winning formula. Their top guy is Daleen Swain, ranked 80th nationally with a 3.9 rating. Right behind him is Jordan Pope at 133 with a solid 3.5. But that duo leading the way, yeah, it doesn't exactly scream SEC contender. Trayman Mark and Chendall Weaver bring some stability, both sitting at 217 and 219 respectively, each rocking a 3.1 rating. Matas Vokitidis adds another rotation piece, coming in at 271st with a 2.8 rating, but after that the drop-off hits pretty quickly. Lacina Traore and Camden Heide fall just outside the top 300, rated 2.6 and 2.4. Not terrible for depth, but again, who's the star here? Look, Rodney Terry gave Texas an upgrade with Miller stepping in as head coach, but I'm not seeing a single player you can really trust to carry a game when it matters most. This feels like a team built to go and finish right where we got them. Sliding into 12th in the SEC, we have Missouri, ranked 36th nationally with a 2.8 team rating. Here's the deal with Mizzou. The top-end talent is definitely there. Mark Mitchell is a legit star, ranked 43rd nationally, sporting a 4.5 rating, and Anthony Robinson backs him up nicely, sitting at 51st with a 4.4 rating. That's a way better 1-2 punch than what Texas has, no question. Sebastian Mack offers a solid third option, coming in at 188 with a 3.2 rating, but past those three, the depth drops off fast. Trent Pierce is at 321st with a 2.7, and Jevon Porter barely registers, rated 1.9 at 632nd. That kind of paper-thin depth means if they hit foul trouble or suffer an injury, yeah, they're cooked. And the coaching, well, let's just say it's variable. And this is a classic high-ceiling, low-floor team. If everything clicks, they're a legit tournament threat. But if Mitchell or Robinson misses time, things could unravel in a hurry. At 13th in the SEC, we've got Georgia, ranked 54th nationally, sporting a 2.6 rating. Now, Mike White's actually doing a solid job down in Athens, but let's be honest, he doesn't have a Jay Newell this year. That freshman impact just isn't there. No clue how some rankings have Georgia top 30 because based on what they've got, that just doesn't add up. Blue Cane's probably the guy to watch. He's 163rd nationally with a 3.4 rating. Jeremiah Wilkinson follows at 189th, rated 3.2. After that, it's a logjam of mediocrity. Sumto Cyril at 379 with a 2.5. Marcus Millender at 397 with 2.4. And then Catchings and Ross both hanging around that 2.4 range. The upside here isn't terrible, but there's no elite piece. Feels like a step back might be coming after last season's forward momentum. 14th in the SEC, it's Oklahoma, sitting 62nd nationally with a 2.5 rating. The entire ceiling of this team hinges on Nigel Pack and whether he gets that waiver. If he returns to his Kansas State sophomore form, and when he was one of the best guards in the country, that's a big swing. But honestly, that seems like more of a fluke at this point. If what we saw at Miami is more the norm, then yeah, that's your floor. Pack's rated 221st nationally with a 3.0. Tay Davis is their top-rated player at 155, holding a 3.4 rating. Not bad at all. Jeff Nwankwo comes in at 240 with a matching 3.0 rating. Xavier Brown is at 361, rated 2.5. After that, you're looking at depth pieces. Darian Reed at 2.4, Muhammad Wague at 2.2. The roster isn't terrible, but unless Pack somehow morphs back into sophomore K-State Nigel Pack, well, you get the picture. 15th in the SEC and 68th nationally, we've got LSU, sporting a 2.5 team rating. This feels like a make-or-break year for Matt McMahon, and if I'm being honest, it's probably going to break. When McMahon brought his star KJ Williams and the core of that Murray team, 3 starters who went 31-3, finished 20th in the AP poll, and even won an NCAA tournament game to LSU, only for them to finish 151st nationally. Yeah, that's a red flag. He's yet to finish inside the top 88 in 3 seasons. Considering the Will Wade era left this program used to success, that's a painfully steep decline. Michael Nwoko leads the Tigers, ranked 137th nationally with a solid 3.5 rating. But after that, D-Dan Thomas is next, and honestly, some folks are way too high on him. He sits at 269th with a 2.8 rating. I'm not buying the upside. People loved D-Dan Thomas as a transfer, but then they don't factor in he's playing 36 minutes a game and posted just a .506 true shooting percentage. There's no real acknowledgement of how many minutes and shots it took for him to average 15 points per game. His numbers look better than they are because they're per possession, but 2 rebounds in 36 minutes, 0.7 steals, 0.9 made threes. That's not enough impact to move the needle. Then it's a long list of middling guys. Max McKinnon, 2.6, Jalen Reed, 2.5, Robert Miller, 2.3, Marquell Sutton, 2.2. Unless McMahon pulls off something truly miraculous, this team's headed right back to irrelevance. Finally, at 16th in the SEC, we've got South Carolina, ranked 78th nationally with a 2.0 team rating. They just lost an NBA lottery pick, and let's be real, they weren't all that great with him, so without, it's looking pretty bleak. Michi Johnson returns, the team's top guy, ranked 247th nationally with a 2.9 rating. After that, it gets rough. Mike Sharavjamps and Elijah Strong both sit at 2.2 ratings, and guys like Kobe Knox, Norden Kapik, and Christ Esendoko aren't even cracking a 2.0. For Lamont Paris and the Gamecocks, staying inside the top 100 nationally would honestly be a win this year. And I'm not saying that sarcastically. There just isn't enough talent here to expect much more. That wraps up the bottom 6 in the SEC. Not much sizzle, definitely not much steak. These are the programs hoping to shock the world, or at least avoid getting run out of the gym by Kentucky.